and I'm going to welcome those of you who are live or those of you who are watching the replay. I am so excited to be talking to Stacey Vulakh. I said that correctly, right?
You did, yes, you did.
Excellent, excellent. We're going to be talking about the stress eating cycle, which I personally am very excited to hear about. And Stacey, you must have gotten like so much busier over COVID. I can imagine that before COVID, people were stress eating, but has your business has probably boomed during this time, I would imagine.
Yes, it truthfully has, because people's natural inclination during a stressful moment is to eat, right? It's the most socially acceptable form of managing stress, so to speak. Certainly drinking is another one, but I've seen people do a lot of different things. They're over social mediaing, they're over shopping, they're over consuming news, right? Anything that's kind of over, but yeah.
Yes,
Food.
I call that numbing our yuck. And I have been saying, there's a reason the alcohol industry is booming during this time. And yeah, people are, and I have, my weakness is food. I'm not a big drinker, but I'm food. So I'm personally very excited to be talking about this today. So I have questions for you, but I would love to just have you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got interested in this topic. Can you let us know?
Yeah. So I would imagine, like many of your listeners and the people in your community, I mean, I've had a lifelong struggle with food, I would say. I don't have any diagnosed eating disorders, but I definitely have a disordered relationship with eating. I've been dieting off and on. My first diet was when I came home from college, my freshman year, and it was Slim Fast Shakes. And I am pretty sure every year after that, for almost 2 decades, it was something else. It was paleo before paleo was a thing. It was, low carb. It was high carb. It was just protein. I mean, you name it, I've done it. Weight Watchers. I've seen therapists. I've been to hypnotherapists. I've definitely taken pills. I mean, I've done all of the things, and I could not figure out what was wrong with me. And that was what I kept thinking, that there was something wrong with me. Why can't I figure this out? I started out in business. I have my master's in social work, so I have a very solid understanding of psychology. And even then, I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. And when I got into coaching, my coaching career has taken, some twists and turns. It's evolved over the years, but I really got into health and nutrition because I was seeing that a lot of my clients were facing and struggling with these issues. And so I went through a nutrition program that educated us on over 100 different types of nutritional theories, all of which can be proven scientifically accurate. So if you are going to do keto, yes, there's great science behind it and you will drop weight, but eventually your body, because you still have a brain, is going to catch up with it. And all the keto, all of the paleo, all of the vegan, whatever it is, isn't going to matter until you figure out what's up here. So once I finally figured that out through more certification and, more learning professionally, I applied these tools to my own life, worked with my own coach. And now this is what I do all day, every day, because it absolutely changed everything for me. Absolutely everything.
Absolutely. My background, when I first started as a therapist, I was working in a clinic for eating disorders. Mm-hmm. So ironically, because I also have issues with eating, and absolutely it's all about the mindset. And what I love that you said, that it affects everything, because it's really, once you feel like you have a healthy relationship with food in general, you have a healthy relationship with everything, because it's not really about the food. It's not about the food. It's about your mind.
And one of the things I say always is, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I know a lot of the work that you teach and you put out into the world overlaps with my approach as well. So when your clients understand that, you can take those same principles and apply them to how you show up professionally, to how you show up in your relationships, to how you show up with food. It really is all the same thing.
That is so true. It really is.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk specifically about stress eating. And I just want to say to those of you who are live that if you have questions as Stacey is going through, post them in the chat, and I will be monitoring the chat to see what comes up. And if it's appropriate, I'll ask then. If not, Stacey should have time at the end to answer questions as well.
Yeah, sure.
So, but let's jump in. And can you just tell me, as we start, what is the stress eating cycle?
So the stress eating cycle is really simple. Imagine you have a circle, and at the top of the circle is your commitment, your promise to today, I'm not going to have brownies, or for the next 60 days, I'm going to do this cleanse, or I have a high school reunion coming up in 6 months and I'm going to, diet for 6 months, whatever it is, that's right at the top. Okay. That's the commitment. And then you're living your day, you're living your life, and you have an urge for food. You have an urge for something that you don't want to be eating, or you think you shouldn't be eating, right? And then you actually eat that thing. Okay. That's step 3 along. That's kind of at the bottom of this circle. And then you eat it and you feel a ton of blame and shame and guilt because you ate something, right? And so then it just starts this whole big spiral, and then you go back to the top. Maybe you go off the wagon for a week or 2 or a couple of months or a year, and then you recommit. Or maybe it's a Friday night and you say, oh, forget about it. Monday, I'm going to recommit. And then you start, and it just goes over and over again. The commitment, the urge, you eat, and then all of the thoughts and feelings and brain drama that you have around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say that people use food to deal with those thoughts and feelings and drama around it to make us feel better? Is that what the stress eating is?
Yeah, it's like a double entendre. So, I mean, right now, we're home and we're dealing with all that we're dealing with, and we want to be our best selves, but sometimes we're just not our best selves, right? So we pick up the food because it's what we've learned. And this is the thing. As I said in the beginning, food is the most socially acceptable form of trying to make ourselves feel better. So when we pick up food, we're either trying to make ourselves feel better, or we're trying to avoid feeling a particular feeling in the moment. So maybe we feel anxious, or we're frustrated because of what's happening in our life, right? And so then you eat, and it didn't work because you still feel frustrated and you still feel anxious. But now you feel badly about that, and you're mad at yourself because, oh, you did it again. And so you eat more, and then comes the shame and the blame and the guilt. And then it's like, I can't even process this anymore, and I'm just going to eat. So yes, it's just layers upon layers of numbing ourselves because we haven't learned how to feel our feelings.
Yeah. And that's really, when I was a therapist, that's what it came down to.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I'm so passionate. I went from helping people with eating disorders to parenting. Like, what the heck is that connection? But it was exactly that. I wanted to help parents raise children who could feel their feelings, because eating disorders are only one symptom. It's also gaming addiction and sex addiction and alcohol. I mean, all of that is just, all it is simply not being able to feel feelings. Yes. So I'm trying to help parents feel their own feelings and let their kids feel their feelings.
Yeah.
To prevent some of this.
Exactly. So totally. And here's one of the things I love about working with women is that so many women of our age group were not taught to feel our feelings, right? We were taught we could do anything. We could be the CEO of this and run, be a vice president, be a president, right? But yeah, I don't know how to teach you how to feel your feelings. Yeah. So it's only as adults that we figure out, I think I need to figure this out, and this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I would even argue that we are taught not to feel our feelings, like the opposite. You worry more about other people's feelings than your own. Oh, you hurt their feelings. It doesn't matter how you felt. You hurt their feelings. You're being mean. So I think that we were taught the opposite. At least I was.
Yeah.
Think about other people. Don't think about yourself.
Absolutely. Right. Because it's selfish.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. And the thing is, the body doesn't work that way. The body needs us to heal, because feelings serve a purpose. They tell us what's going on. And if we don't listen to them, they don't go away.
Right. They get louder. Exactly.
Yep. And then we have to eat more to quiet them.
Yes, exactly. And when they're not, hence the stress eating cycle that goes on for decades, right? Or the disordered eating or the constant dieting. Yeah. Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you may have answered this already, but I would like to know, how did we get here, and why does it actually make sense that this is happening? Is that something you've answered, or do you have more to say about that?
Yeah, so I'll come at it from a different way. So I did sort of address the fact that it's the most socially acceptable. It's the easiest, right? So at some point when we were young, we were having a tantrum or we weren't feeling well, and our mom made us buttered cinnamon toast. And she said, here, baby, this is going to make you feel better. And it really worked, right? And she wasn't being malicious. That was what she does, right? It absolutely worked. Well, fast forward, we're 13 and we have a fight with, one of our girlfriends. And now we go into the pantry and we found, wow, a half a bag of potato chips actually takes away the sting from, this mean girl conversation. But wow, now I really don't feel good. And then it just perpetuates itself, right? And so now here we are as adults, and we just don't have the tools. Through no fault of our own, we've tried so many different things, but we just don't have the tools. And one of the things that I teach people is basic understanding of how the brain works. I mean, there's many parts of the brain, but the two that I focus on in here, and I know you do this too, are your prefrontal cortex and then your primal or habit brain. And this is the part of the brain that wants to keep you safe, that is responding to the urges, that sees danger, which is an uncomfortable feeling or an uncomfortable emotion, and says, okay, we're going to make you feel better. This is the part that's responding. And the way it knows to make you feel better is to get you to eat, right? This is the part of the brain up here that we want to tap into when we're trying to create new habits, when we're trying to change the way we do something, because this is the part, our prefrontal cortex, that plans, that is responsible for delegating, that is that CEO higher level functioning. And when we can get this on board before this part kicks in, or even when this part kicks in, say, oh yes, this is what's happening here, then we can proceed, and we have ways to go about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so
Yeah.
true. Our values live in our prefrontal cortex, like who we want to be.
Yeah.
Yet when we are in that primal brain, what I call yuck, the place of our brain where we sense something uncomfortable, fight or flight kicks in, that shuts off our values in that moment, and we forget, and we can't, put down the cookie or put down the sugar, or we justify the sugar, or we also can't stop yelling, or whatever it is that's going to, in the short run, alleviate discomfort. That's what our fight or flight response, or our primal brain, is telling us to do.
Yeah.
It's really, and then we are not aligned with our values. And to me, that's the biggest source of unhappiness, is people who are not aligned with their values.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. Because this part's going to win out all the time.
so true.
It's going to win. It's going to do what it wants to do. And then what happens is when we have one of these moments, we want to forget about it. And we want to say, oh God, this is terrible. I don't even want to look at this. And that's where the learning is. Because when you can pause for a second and realize, wow, I just yelled at my child, or wow, I ate 2 bowls of ice cream. Just a minute. What was I thinking? What was going on there? Then you can begin to understand what your brain is telling you, and you can see it the next time it happens. It might take 4 or 5 tries, but you at least know what to look for. And eventually you get it and you realize, oh yeah, I'm actually opening the freezer for this ice cream. I don't even want it anymore. And that's when it starts to gel. It doesn't take long, but that reflection piece is integral, and it takes a moment. People don't want to do that, but that's where the growth is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, we're so tired, we don't want to grow, yet we're so tired because we're not growing. Right. So we get stuck in that spot. We really do.
Yeah.
So then what do we do? Like, what is the solution here? How can we handle all this? I think you were starting to say the reflection, but what would you say is the solution for this, since we're all very commonly stuck in it?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is to realize this is not a you problem. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. The people who seemingly get it are not special unicorns. None of that is happening. All that's going on is there's a process in your brain that keeps looping that you're stuck on because you haven't learned another way. So once I learned that was a big shift for me, because, okay, yeah, I'm not broken. I can learn anything. It might be uncomfortable, but I can learn this. If I want to figure this out, I can learn this. Mm-hmm. I actually tell my clients a lot. I say, it's fun to learn something new at the same time you're doing this, because being a newbie takes a totally different mindset and perspective than any adult wants to have. Mm-hmm. We have to be uncomfortable. We have to be willing to look silly. We have to be willing to make a lot of mistakes. So I don't care if it's dancing or the piano or just lettering, like doing something calligraphy. Learning to be imperfect helps us learn how to stop stress eating, how to stop, dieting, how to lose weight in a very different way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's funny that you're emphasizing this sort of, we have to learn to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because I always say that confidence, and I heard this from someone else, I think, I don't think I'm pretty sure I didn't make this up. I heard it a long time ago though. Confidence doesn't come from knowing you can do things. Confidence comes from knowing you can be uncomfortable.
Yes.
The most confident people in the world are not better at things.
No.
They're just able to be uncomfortable. And I talk about something called the yuck curve that I'm not sure I've talked to you about, but listeners will definitely know about the yuck curve. If we can recognize that yuck curve and go through it without stress eating, without yelling, just recognizing we're in it and having something else to do without giving into that urge from our primal non-values part of our brain, we do become confident and we do meet our values and our goals so much more easily.
Totally. Yes. One of my mentors says something very simpler. She says, discomfort is the currency to your dreams.
Oh, I love that.
And it's the same thing, right?
Discomfort is the currency to your dreams. I never thought, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just embracing and knowing that everybody feels uncomfortable and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to, and I'm a big fan of the word and. It doesn't have to be black or white. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be only green things and no ice cream. There's so much gray in life, and you can be in the and. You can be uncomfortable and also know that you're going to be okay.
Yes.
You can have an urge and know that, okay, it might be unpleasant. This part of your brain might be really telling you need to get to the pantry right this second, but you can also decide, I'm just going to sit here for 90 seconds and see what happens.
Mhm.
And 90 seconds is kind of the magic number because yes, your adrenaline kicks up. Sometimes your cortisol kicks up depending on how much resistance you're doing. But if you can just sit there for 90 seconds, this is one of the quick things that I tell people, just sit there for 90 seconds and breathe. You can do it standing up. In the beginning, I tell people, go sit down, just go somewhere, go to the bathroom, tell your family you have to go to the bathroom and just sit there for 90 seconds and just breathe. And it's incredible what happens in 90 seconds. You will come back. You may still want the food, and that's okay, but it's from a different place. You've at least taken the moment to calm down and breathe and check in with yourself. But more often than not, you don't want it anymore.
Absolutely.
But it's that pause. I know you talk about the pause too.
I do. And what I too want to stress that I think you are doing really well too, is this isn't about willpower. So when I have been successful in my life in losing weight before, it has nothing to do with willpower. And Brooke Castillo, you know her, right?
Yeah.
Brooke Castillo,
Yeah.
her stuff. She
Yeah.
has, I use this all the time, her beach ball metaphor for willpower versus, so when we are uncomfortable, a lot of parents will say this to me. They'll say, I wasn't really calm inside, but I used all my willpower to pretend I was calm. And if you use all that willpower, we only have a certain amount of willpower. It's not effective. So the way Brooke explains this, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't listened to her in a while, but she basically says it's like if you're floating in the water and you have a beach ball right next to you, or even if you're standing and you have a beach ball next to you in the water, and you try to push it down and use a lot of effort to push it down, it's going to pop right back up. Yeah. Willpower is just pushing it down, it comes right back up. Whereas if you just let that beach ball float away, if you just say, I am feeling uncomfortable, I would like some food right now, I'm just not going to act on it, but you recognize it, that beach ball floats away. It's not willpower. It's just letting yourself go through that yuck curve, letting yourself experience that discomfort without acting on it. So Stacey, give me your feedback. Did I do justice to that?
No, absolutely. That is exactly the metaphor she uses. You explained it 100% spot on. Yeah.
And I use that for parenting with the urge to yell or the urge to, threaten to take everything away. You just have to recognize it.
Yes.
And let it pass.
And that urge is just a reaction, just one part of your brain that's telling you to do something, right? And when you're living from your values and you have a different goal in mind, you can recruit this ahead of time and say, okay, yeah, I know this urge. So this was part of, you said, what was the solution? Yeah. My first thing that I wanted to say was that it's not a you problem, it's a process problem. Okay. So the second thing I want to say is that these urges to yell, to eat food, to maybe have a drink, whatever it is, they're going to happen. Yeah. They're never going to go away, ever, because you have a human brain and that's what your brain does. Part of your brain is always going to want something to make you feel better. Even knowing that is incredibly freeing,
I agree.
because a lot of us think, oh, I just want to get this parenting thing. Just want to nail it. Or I just want to nail, I just want to lose 10 pounds and it's all going to be great. Well, you lose 10 pounds and you get there, but you still have a brain. You're still going to have urges for something. They might be less. The difference is that you have tools and you know what to do when they come up. So I say this because if people take nothing, understand that your brain is always going to serve up yuck and garbage, and you get to decide, am I going to act on this? And then decide, and that's it. And it's just a decision. So that helps me. I imagine the urges are like knocks at the door. So imagine you're in your house and you're cooking, and the doorbell rings or someone knocks, an urge. You don't want to pay attention to it. Okay, well, they're going to knock louder, right? And then they're going to start ringing the doorbell. And then they're really going to start ringing the doorbell. And then they're going to ring the doorbell and they're going to pound on the door. And then they're going to start yelling for you. And when you don't acknowledge them, they just get louder and louder and louder and louder until finally you can't take it anymore. And you walk to the front door and you open it up and you're like, what do you want? Right? And then it's just too late. You've already lost it. If you can get to the point where you know the knocks are coming, and for a lot of us, when it comes to stress eating, we have certain times of the day where we know they're coming. After school is a big one, right? Right before dinner, after dinner, when the kitchen's already closed. Those are some of the three biggies, right? You know they're coming, okay? So then you can think about them and you can plan for them. I even tell myself, oh yeah, I know when my kids come home, I'm gonna wanna have a snack. I just know that. And sometimes that's enough to stop me wanting to have it. Because when you resist with the beach ball, or you don't answer the knocks at the door, they just get louder and louder and louder until you can't take it anymore. And then you eat all the things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So true. I love that. Anything I can do to visualize. So I love that. They're going to knock, they're going to get louder. But if you've said to yourself, they're going to knock, they're going to get louder, that's what I expected. And you know what? Let them get louder. That's okay. It's an annoying neighbor that I don't want to come in because it'll make things worse. So I'm just going to let them eventually walk away.
Right. And eventually they will.
Yeah,
they might come back the next day. But probably by day 5, when you acknowledge that they're there, but you're not ignoring them, they're going to be like, this is no fun. She's not playing along. So I'm going to, fade off into the sunset.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
The other part is you touch on this, is the whole visualizing component. Our brains don't know the difference between what happens in reality and when we visualize something. So if you can visualize the knocks coming, or when you close up the kitchen and you want that bowl of ice cream after, if you can visualize yourself saying, okay, yeah, here it comes. I'm closing up the refrigerator or the kitchen, and then, oh yeah, I'm going to sit down now and my body wants ice cream. And then you get to choose how you want to respond to it. Oh, hi, desire for ice cream, right? I see you there. I'm going to want you, but I'm going to make a different decision today ahead of time. And I know it might be uncomfortable, but that's okay. And then visualize yourself walking back to the couch and sitting there without your bowl of ice cream. And yeah, you might feel uncomfortable. Of course, this is new. This is something you've never done before. Your body, your brain has always won. Your brain has always gotten that ice cream, but today you're going to do something different. But because you visualized it ahead of time, your body and your brain know what to expect. So powerful visualizing.
Absolutely. The best, you probably know this because you know a lot about psychology, but the best athletes use visualization in their performance to reach peak performance. Yes. And it really is true. The brain doesn't recognize the difference between visualizing and reality.
Yeah.
I love those are such practical tips.
Yeah.
Really,
and it doesn't take so long. I know we're all stressed. I have twin 11-year-olds. We're all working from home. We're all home. It's still not quite what life was like, normal. But this doesn't take hours at all. This can take 2 minutes. This can be something you do when you're at the stoplight or when you're putting your makeup on in the morning. Okay, I know at 3:00 this is going to happen. How do I want it to go? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so true. Yeah. It's so empowering that we can rely on ourselves to make different decisions.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? You gave us such good practical advice. Anything else that you want to say before? And in fact, if anyone does want to start posting questions, who's here live, you can feel free to do that. I'll have questions if other people don't, but anything you want to say, Stacey?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. This is not there. It's not a one size fits all quick fix solution, right? We've all been on diets before. And the reason why they don't work is because diets are looking strictly at the food. And so what happens when you take away all of the food, you have all of these emotions and no tools, which is why we haven't been successful. So it's a process. It does not take nearly as long as people think it does. And the little things make the biggest difference. I tell people from the minute we start working together, what I want you to focus on are some very foundational things. And the acronym I like to use is HALT, HALTT. And it's hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Okay. And this is a holdover from when I was in social work school. If you're hungry, you have to eat. Quite frankly, that's just it, right? And a lot of us, if we're stressed, we're eating too much. Sometimes we're not eating enough in the beginning of the day, or we're not eating the right things that actually fuel our body. So if you're hungry, eat food, okay? You have to be sleeping. That's another big one. And I'm sure you would say that in order to be the best parent that you can possibly sleep, or the best parent that you can possibly be, you have to make sure you're sleeping. You have to. So much changes in our life while we sleep. Our body is healing, it's detoxifying, it's rejuvenating, all of the things. And if we're not sleeping, we're immediately putting ourselves at a deficit. Okay. Right now, let's see. So water, sleep, movement, some sort of movement. It doesn't have to be a Peloton ride for 45 minutes. You can take your dog around the block, walk to the mailbox 5 times, or whatever it is, but something outside where you're getting some sort of sun, some sort of fresh air, some sort of movement for your body. Your body needs it. Okay. And then the last part to that is there has to be some sort of social connection. As parents, and particularly as women, we're giving to everyone. And if our cup is not full, it makes perfect sense that we're going to seek comfort with food.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So start there.
Yeah.
And those things, and then the food comes along. The food really does. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you're setting your body up for success when you do those things, right?
Yes.
And then it doesn't crave the comfort through the food.
Exactly. You know, if you're able to have a conversation with a girlfriend for 3 minutes and just vent or whatever it is you want to talk about, that fills your bucket. You've connected. Now you're way less stressed, right? You're not gonna, it's all intermingled. It's all connected. Yeah.
I know. And I know a lot of parents say, oh, it always comes back to me taking care of myself. It's like, it gets really frustrating. There's a reason it all comes back to that. And I've explained the science of this, that if you are not taking care of yourself, your brain is stuck in fight or flight, because it senses that you're not taking care of yourself. Then you're stuck in that urge part of your brain. And that's why we yell more when we're irritable and all of that. So everybody in this group knows I emphasize the yuck, our own yuck first. So great tips. I appreciate that. I am going to ask a question if no one else has them, but before I get into questions, Stacey, I'm sure people are going to want to contact you and reach out to you. And then follow you on Instagram, which I now do. And I love your posts on Instagram. So can you let people know where they can contact you, how they can reach out to you?
Sure. Instagram is the best place to find me. It's at Stacey Vulakh, Stacey, Vulakh, Vulakh. And I'm there. I story almost every day. And then I post a couple of times a week. There's videos and inspirational things and, just kind of funny things and life things. Cause it's all connected.
Yeah. And I love you there. I've loved watching you there. It's been really great for me too.
Thank you.
So is that the best place to reach you? Anything else you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I am on Facebook. My personal page is Stacey Knudsen Vulakh, Knudsen. I also have a business page. I definitely am active there, but the place to find me is definitely on Instagram.
Excellent. I didn't know if you had a website or anything like that, but Instagram, go there and you'll get everything that you want, Stacey. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I do see a question in the chat. What can I do besides visualize my responses to the urges coming?
What can you do besides visualize? So anticipating, going back to that, knowing that the knocks are going to come. So really preparing yourself. And I tell clients to think about the parts of your day that are so stressful. You know, when do you find yourself wanting to munch? Okay. What's happening? Are there certain triggers? Are there certain conversations? Sometimes people can be also, you know, the one thing I can say is that stress eating happens not because of what's going on around us, but because of what we think about what's going on around us. So we can't change the world, right? We have families, we have lives, we're working. That part we're not going to change. What you can change is what you're thinking. So if you start to normalize the urges, plan for them, and then coach yourself through and say, okay, I'm willing to do this. It's going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to get it right the first 1, 2, 5, maybe 10 times, whatever, that's okay. But I'm willing to try this. I'm willing to work at this. The breathing is also, I mean, that's my number one, breathing. Your breath solves everything, really. I mean, it really does. If you can't breathe for 90 seconds, breathe for 10 seconds, right? If you're in the pantry and you've got that bag of chips, put the bag of chips there and just step back and breathe for 10 seconds, whatever it is. And then if you respond to the urge, do not shame yourself. Do not blame yourself. Do not tell yourself you're a bad person or you're a failure. You're never going to get it at all. We absolutely have got to stop doing that because it just perpetuates the cycle. The conversation needs to be something like, okay, I tried. What can I learn here? And when you ask your brain a question like, what can I learn here? It can go to work solving that question. But when you ask your brain, oh my gosh, why am I such a loser? Why can't I get it? It's also going to solve for that. And it's going to tell you a whole bunch of garbage that doesn't serve you. But when you ask it a constructive question, you'll get constructive answers.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
so absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody else who's here who has a question, you can certainly ask those. I'm just curious about your thoughts about sugar, because that's my biggest, you know, my urges come from sugar and I have such trouble. And my mother and grandfather have been diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather died of diabetes. My mom has been taking medicine. So I know it's in my future, but I have a really hard time with sugar. So any thoughts about that? I mean, it's a very generic question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about sugar. Sugar is, understand the way that we evolved. We didn't have sugar, but for maybe 1 or 2 months of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
As our ancestors were roaming the planet, maybe they'd come across a blueberry bush and they'd grab a few and then they'd be good for another couple weeks until they came across the next blueberry bush, right? Well, we don't live that way now. All of our food is accessible immediately, right? And the way food is now, whether we're eating blueberries today, which were very different than blueberries, 10,000 years ago, or even 500 years ago, certainly food that we're eating, a lot of it is engineered and designed to want us to continue to eat it, right? So you have a bite, oh my gosh, it's so good. Your brain gets the response, this is delicious. Naturally, your brain wants more. And so we've been doing this for years. You need more and more and more and more. It's the reason why a young child can literally have one Skittle or one Starburst and be totally fine, but we need an entire package because we've been doing this for a long time. So the pleasure or the relief that our brain gets, we need more and more and more and more and more of whatever it is, but especially sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. And our brain really is telling us to go for it. And it's, I guess, even more, I mean, it's just, again, that discomfort though. Your brain's telling you, but you don't have to listen to it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And I've heard that urge gets less, although I have never successfully really gotten off of sugar. So
the urge does get less. And I will tell you that I have a program that I'm about to launch. It's a 4-week program and it's called 100 Urges. And the idea is you take a jar and you get a bead or a paper clip or something like this, and you want to feel and experience 100 different urges. And what happens is very quickly you realize that in the beginning, you have urges constantly. Like the first few days you do this, you might put 25, 30, 40 beads in there, right? And then within a few days, your brain calms down and you're putting maybe 2 or 3 urges in because your brain responds. So the reason why I do it with the jar is because as you're going through this process, you want the chocolate really, really, really badly, right? And instead of eating the chocolate, and we talk a lot about the things that I talked about today, and then some other tools and tricks to use along the way, but you reward yourself. Okay, I'm not going to have this chocolate, but you give your brain the reward that it wants anyway, which is a bead, and you put it in that jar. Because the food is also a reward for your brain system. Your brain sends up these signals, oh, I need this. And you've conditioned it to give it food. And so you give it a reward, and your brain's like, yay, great, you did it. Now I want more. Okay, great, you keep doing it. And so with this 100 urges, you're still giving your brain that little reward, but you're just trading it. It's no longer food, it's something else.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I love that advice too, because I always say whenever you want to change a behavior, you need to replace it with something else.
Yes.
You can't just stop yelling if you don't have something else to do with that discomfort. So I teach what I call yuck release strategies, which is you have to do something else. You can't just stop one thing. You need to replace it. So I love that idea. What a great program.
And then lots of celebrating, oh my gosh, I put 5 beads in there today. That's 5 times I didn't eat. Maybe that's 5 brownies. For some people, that's might be 5 whole bags of chips or 5 eating, binge sessions. Think about that. It adds up very quickly. So at the end of 100 urges, what happens is they're much less, for one. 2, you understand that you have power, not like resistance power, but you can actually do this and not respond and not die. Because your brain's going to tell you if you don't have that candy, you're going to die. No, you're not going to die. You're going to be fine. And you'll get it at a different time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And it feels really good. It does feel really good to resist that urge. Once you've traveled that curve, it feels really good at the end of the curve. It's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Once you travel it, the discomfort tends to decrease, diminish. You feel so empowered.
Right. You realize it's not such a big deal, and you've just been making it a big deal. And then the other fun part is, as you're in the 100 urges, you realize, oh, wow, I can transfer this to my children. I can transfer this to my significant other and not jump down their throat. I want to right now, but I'm not going to. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. There is another question. What about sugar and the gut microbiome? Does sugar damage your gut?
Yeah, I mean, the long and the short of it is yes. Too much of anything definitely can be damaging to your gut. Definitely. And the problem is, if we're eating a lot of sugar, more often we're not eating a lot of the other things that can help counterbalance and counteract some of those effects. But yeah, sugar is incredibly irritating. Yeah. It affects our sleep. It affects my cycles. I don't know if any of your female listeners have tuned into that, but always around the holidays, the next cycle I have is abysmal. And it's because of all of the extra food and indulgences that I've had around that period, around that, that time. Yeah. Absolutely. Everything.
Yeah. Sugar wreaks havoc. I wish it weren't so addictive. But we have, even if it is, we have the power to let those urges, like you said, ride out. So
yeah. And decide that, okay, I'm going to have it. So the other thing I teach my clients is, yeah, you want to have sugar, because if you tell your brain you're not going to, it's going to freak out and get it anyway. But you just want to have it when you decide. So I decide, I don't know, tomorrow at 4:00, I'm going to have chocolate. My brain can solve for that. It knows it's getting chocolate, right? But when you tell yourself, no, we're not going to get it, and it really wants it, that's why we're all so out of control and we can't stop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny, because when I was a therapist and working with teens and with the parents, they would say, well, I'm just going to get rid of everything in my house and my teen can't binge. And I'd say that's one of the worst things you can do, because as soon as you tell someone they can't, tell the brain it can't have something, it will absolutely want it more. And there's a reason. There's studies on people who were actually in the Holocaust, who were starved, became disproportionately obese after they had not been able to have food. So there's one more question, and we'll start to wrap up soon, because I want to respect everyone's time. But could weight gain due to severe stress and anxiety result from lack of eating versus emotional eating? Been yo-yo dieting for 15 years and stopped. I don't do dessert, fried, carbs, even no chocolate. absolutely none of that stuff.
Could weight gain?
So I think could weight gain happen because of anxiety, not necessarily the food, but just because someone is anxious? I think that's what the question is.
If that's the question, then yes, absolutely. Because what happens is, so weight loss it's a complicated process in your body, and there's all kinds of hormones involved, all kinds of hormones. And if you are chronically stressed and perhaps maybe in adrenal fatigue, I don't know, I'm not, a doctor and I'm not diagnosing, but if your hormones, and I'm talking more than just estrogen and your sex hormones and testosterone, I'm talking about ghrelin and leptin. Those are your two hormones that regulate, tell you whether your body is full or tell you when you're hungry. Ghrelin is the one that tells you when you're hungry. Vitamin D is a hormone. So if all of that is out of whack from chronic stress, then yeah, your body isn't going to release any weight because it's holding on. So when we deprive ourselves and we starve our bodies, it holds on to anything it can possibly get. And so when you do finally eat, your brain and body doesn't know when the next food is coming. It just knows that, oh, wow, I haven't been eating. So here this comes. Now she's feeding me something, even if it's, nutritionally dense, like something green or some fruits versus candy, your body is going to hold on for dear life because it doesn't know when the next bit's coming. So yes, it's absolutely possible that the reason why you're not able to release any weight is because you are stressed and not feeding your body enough. Totally. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
all right.
welcome.
I think we got to all of the questions. Wow. Okay. Thank you very much for the response. So Stacey, thank you so much for your time and your great advice. So practical. I really appreciate it. I know others will as well. And everybody who's listening, definitely check out Stacey on Instagram and reach out if you have any thoughts or questions for her. Thanks, Stacey, and everybody have a great, great day.
Thank you. Take care.